Um, Hello, welcome back, everyone. I've got John here for another mentorship session. So say hello, John.
Hey everyone.
All right, so let's get started. So tell me about the present situation, the things that happened last week, and kind of the preferred future going forward, and what we can do during this time to help get there.
Yeah, this week, little bit of work on Mentor Hub. Um, the the big thing I worked on this week was like creating a prototype for a save, a visual cue to users for when the data in a form is being saved. So I know you uh, saw the form that we ran through with the um, cognitive walkthrough, and you got to experience, you know, trying to do things with the form. There was no visual cue to indicate like updates and edits were being saved. So I worked on that this week, and I pushed that up for review. I don't think it's been reviewed yet, but it's kind of like a first take at that and trying to improve that feature or create that feature. Um, yeah, that's part of what I've been working on. Um, and then I'm just getting started with refactoring the code for the topic UI to um, convert it from basically local mock data to eventually using the API. So I am trying to utilize a or create a Redux toolkit store where it'll store all the data globally and it'll dispatch actions to the API asynchronously. But that's that's kind of the lowdown on this week. Present situation, still just ongoing job searching, networking, um, continual effort to continue to professionalize or just gain additional skills, work on things. Um, Testing, I'm trying to add that into my skill set. Uh, I think that's one of the features that Mike wants on most things, but it's probably just a good thing to have in general as a developer, having a good testing skill set to do unit testing, or end-to-end testing, or all any sort of thing like that would probably be helpful. So yeah, I just kind of want to talk about those goals and what I can do to further um, work on any of those areas. And um, the ideal future again, it's just trying to get that first job in a software developer role. Even though the market's pretty challenging, you just have to show show value, show initiative. So that's kind of where I'm at with everything.
Okay, great. So regarding that, and specifically regarding the goal of jobs, we had
Mhm.
in your now scope to apply for jobs based on that like you got on your post for
Yeah.
the. Could you tell me about that?
Yeah, I did look at IBM's LinkedIn profile and on their jobs section there. I looked through a lot of their jobs. Unfortunately, I didn't see any that were software developer roles um, that weren't like, they had a lot of front end, full stack developer roles, but a lot of them were out of the country, like in India and places like that. Um, they had they had an internship that looked interesting, but it was on site in like Austin, Texas. That was the one thing that I found that would have been good, but you had to be on site in Texas, so that didn't wasn't practical for me. So really, I mean, didn't see anything that I could immediately apply for, but I checked that out.
Okay. All right. All right. And are you familiar with like filtering out the jobs in LinkedIn, things like that?
Yeah, so I was on their particular LinkedIn page. If you click on the jobs on their page, it'll show every job that they are listing through LinkedIn.
Mm.
I didn't go to their website's career page. Maybe I could look at that. Um, but as far as what they had posted on LinkedIn, there's a search feature, so you can use keywords to search open jobs. So I did a little bit of that, front end, um, back end, full stack, JavaScript, React, those kinds of keywords. Um, and it did pull up some things, but it was mostly stuff that was not um, based in the US.
Okay. Yeah, but that's something to celebrate for sure. Getting through that. So I'll mark that one off. Put that in the celebrated because you're at least looking in some of the, keeping that alive. Uh, I
Yep.
I have the official site here. So I guess I'll replace that bullet point with that. So I just did some searches, but they have a more robust or they have different options that you might. I just checked like software engineering. There's like so I narrowed it down to 25 jobs in the link that's on there. But yeah, I think that's a good idea to maybe go out of LinkedIn because LinkedIn is targeting a broad audience and go to the web pages because web pages are typically served depending on your area. So that might be a good filtering technique.
Yeah, and I think the companies have to pay for advertising the jobs on LinkedIn. So for junior jobs, I from what I've seen, a lot of companies aren't like actively advertising junior jobs or entry level positions, at least on like the big job boards, but sometimes on their internal pages that they do because it doesn't cost them anything to do that. So yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
And are you applying for just junior jobs or professional jobs as well?
Um, I my kind of my threshold there is looking at all. I don't limit myself to just jobs that like say junior developer in the role title or anything. I'll basically apply to anything that says like 1 to 3 years of experience because I know a lot of that is somewhat flexible depending on your skill set and your background. And, it's always I've heard it's always better for them to eliminate you than to eliminate yourself from the get-go. So just I try to be as liberal with that as possible, because a lot of times it seems like they're, even for the junior jobs, they have pretty high expectations with knowledge of skills and years of experience, and but they may just be looking for their dream candidate that has tons of years of experience but is willing to work at a junior level pay, I guess.
Okay, but you do have kind of a list of must have and nice to have attributes in the jobs you're looking for. Is that correct?
Yeah, my criteria, the main one is um, remote or local
Hmm.
or hybrid local, so that I can. The biggest thing is having to relocate. I'm trying to avoid having to do that. So that's kind of the biggest need to have. And then the other stuff is trying to align it with the skill set that I have. So React and Node, Express, Postgres database, or SQL, some kind of SQL database. Um, but I've been applying to anything that looks junior, even if the skill set doesn't apply, if it's a local position. Recently got rejected for a job local here, um, just this last week. It was a job I'd applied to maybe a couple weeks ago, and they were looking for full stack developer, but I think the key thing was they wanted a PHP language experience on the back end, and then the Laravel library. I had minimal experience with PHP and no experience with Laravel, so just got weeded out there. But yeah, I do have kind of my list of must-haves and nice-to-haves, and I'm pretty open on what those are, just to try to cast the widest net possible.
Awesome. So yeah, okay. So let's that sounds like it's pretty clear. Still working on a Odin project to try to build up that resume, that set of skills. Still job searching, and so it sounded so. It's like, what are some like ideas you have? It sounded like you were recently rejected from a job for kind of not having a set of skills. And it sounds like you were interested in learning more about like test driven development and expanding out your set of skills. Could you tell me more about that?
Sure, yeah. The test skill wasn't necessarily emphasized in this latest rejection, but I've had other jobs that I've applied to that have asked about my experience with doing unit testing or any other type of software testing, and it's pretty limited to just a small bit of experience doing some really small basic unit tests with the boot camp. So um, yeah, that's something that I'd like to incorporate with the project I'm doing with Mentor Hub, adding some unit tests to that. And really, I don't think the testing suite matters that much. Um, as much as just having some good experience with a robust application. But um, did that answer your question? Not sure if I'm heading in the
Yeah.
right direction.
So yeah, moving on to the incubation on the coaching wheel. So trying to get some ideas, brainstorming to get to the preferred vision of the future. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like yeah, there's this. So I guess one thing I want to float out there, and I want to make it say it in the right way, is I feel like sometimes the problem with job searching is you can't see who they hired instead of you.
Yeah,
Um, but and we assume they hired the perfect person and they had everything. They were just a better candidate. But sometimes I can't help but wonder if that's not the case, and where I went wrong is I'm saying yes, I'm Superman. I can fly. I have X-ray vision. I have saved the world multiple times. But there's this kryptonite thing where it's just kryptonite kind of gets me, and it's my weakness. And there's no kryptonite on planet Earth. It's all in a different galaxy, and then they're left with this feeling like, he was great. He could fly. He had magic powers, but that kryptonite thing, it sounds like it was a big problem for him. So like, I guess that's something I wanted to say as part of incubation, and kind of some ideas on how to improve performance during these job interviews, because I feel like
yeah,
sometimes that's the impression they're given, is like, oh, he's got this big kryptonite weakness. Let's go with the other person who's just kind of like exceptional, but not quite to Superman, because that person's weakness isn't kryptonite. But you know
hmm,
at the same
yeah.
time,
So
yeah.
is it that we sometimes emphasize that or kind of make that known, or that hey, I don't have the skill, and ma- we make a bigger deal out of it than we should? Or um, are we not? Are you saying that we should emphasize the skills we do have more to just show the value of what we do have?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to be honest, but at
Yeah,
the same time, being honest doesn't mean, oh, I don't have a PhD in test driven development, therefore I'm not right for the job.
yeah,
Sometimes not having the exact perfect right experience or education doesn't mean you're a bad candidate.
yeah. I would totally agree with that. And I follow some people um, on LinkedIn that I feel like give good advice. One of them's a former tech recruiter who kind of pokes fun a little bit at developers, specifically junior developers that always like are like, no, I need to go get this other skill or this other skill, or I need to go back and get a degree because I don't have a degree. Um, and he's like, no, it's not that you don't have X or Y skill sometimes, or a lot of times, it's that you haven't just shown enough value in general. Um, so the value may be there a lot of times, but so it can be difficult or challenging to show that and make that crystal clear to the people that are interviewing or screening out your resume. And I think that's kind of along the lines of what you're talking about too, is that you're never going to have all the skills, or but if you make it clear that there's good value, you have the experience you do have, it could bring a lot of value to a company, then a company is going to, not care that you don't have everything if you've shown that you can do you have done valuable things for different projects. So, yeah, I think that's something that I want to try to focus on too, not play the go get this skill, go get that skill, and try to have the perfect skill set for every job that I apply to, but just really double down on some core skills, um, and make that clear to on my resume and in phone screens and things like that.
All right, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So, tell me about like the implementation of that, like the first step that you can do to to go about interviews and job searching in that way.
For me, I think it is. Um, there's a couple maybe different ways. One way that I'm trying to do that is for the resume show impact. Um, there's I forgot what there's like a Google an acronym for the way you can set up your bullets on your resume to show impact, and mainly it's um, showing the impact up front. So, like, impact before even showing what it is you did, showing the result and the impact and why it was important, and then show what you did or how you did it as like a secondary thing. And supposedly by doing that, um, it can emphasize that value. So I know all my bullets on my resume aren't necessarily in that format. Some of them are just this is what I did kind of thing. So trying to update the resume to try to get pull value out of each of those, you know, what I did and why I did it, um, perhaps could help there. I'm not sure how to do that in an interview per se, but just talking about the things maybe I feel most confident about, and that's kind of the approach I've taken. Try to emphasize my strongest skills, but yeah, that's kind of my idea how to try to implement that.
Do you know if your resume is ATS compatible? Uh,
Um, I don't know. I do have it in a format that's um like single column. It seems to be. I don't know how to validate that though, or how you would validate that it's ATS compliant.
okay. Um, yeah, so I've got some links I just found briefly here that I'm putting in the now scope. I think that's probably important. In my experience, I
Mm,
actually paid for a professional resume writing service, and it
mm,
directly led to a job. It was quite expensive, but you could see the difference between what it looked like when I was writing my resume. I was just kind of shooting in the dark and just trying thing after thing and not knowing what worked and what didn't. And then
mm.
when they did it, it was so much. It looked so much different than what mine looked like, and it. Uh, I was hired to a really perfect position as a result of that. This was in like 2022, something like that. Um,
Yeah,
so
that might.
yeah,
Good.
yeah. At that time, I had quite a bit of experience, probably like 7 years or so. So there was kind of a lot for them to work with, but I think the uh, a good step is making sure that the resume actually passes some of the automated screening, especially when applying on places like LinkedIn.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I think that trying to get outside the big job boards is, I think, another key takeaway that I've keep hearing again and again from some of the quote unquote experts giving advice is that you know, trying to compete with everyone that's applying on LinkedIn is somewhat of a losing battle. A lot of times, you get lost in the sea of applications. A lot of these junior jobs have hundreds, if not more, applicants within the first day or two. Oh, and then they just shut them down. But then, still you'd be one of hundreds of people applying. And I mean, I think it's sometimes hard to know the right approach to take to get access to these local unposted jobs. And I mean, networking is obviously a way to do that. But yeah, I think trying to get outside the big board applications, I want to continue to focus on that, um, as much, or if not more than, just having a great resume and still applying to the big job boards. I think it still make things more difficult, but just another idea.
All right. So,
Mhm.
what would you like to celebrate with me next week?
Um, that's a good question. Let's see. Um, well, I would um again would like to have some more contributions to the Mentor Hub, and um, I think I'd like to focus on maybe making some new connections with recruiters or local companies that have hired junior software developers, and try to just start building some more local connections that way.
Okay. Did you see like I did you see the kind of because I remember like in some of our first sessions I would kind of be convinced that there's that hidden job market and that's the best place to look. Did you see like the kind of I wrote a kind of a debunk article on that because I just thought about it more and it kind of it's like yeah 80% of jobs aren't posted online but like the purpose is to work online so like 99.999% of jobs aren't posted in English, aren't posted in the United States, aren't in IT. So it's kind of like, the hidden job market might be hidden for a reason. So, uh, like what are you discovering during this job searching process? I know you mentioned that you discovered there might be some kind of targeting in your weaknesses that you might be able to present yourself differently to have those be kind of less of an issue for the employer. Are there other sorts of discoveries you're making?
Um, I think consistency with the job search probably is another one. I've kind of probably slacked off a little bit as far as like the number and effort of applications, and I've seen the a parallel maybe with the number of screens that that are or just contacts and things like that. So I think I need to continually be putting some applications in while continuing to network at the same time. It, I guess the takeaway is trying to balance all of these things, like growing my skills, networking, putting out applications. Maybe best to try to do a little bit of each versus solely focus on any one area.
All right, cool. All right, so yeah, that's the half hour. I do have one
Yeah,
quick thing to say.
sure.
Just when I was in my 8 month job search, unemployed,
Yeah,
I would get these big mega interviews that were like 5 7 hours, and I'd be like,
yeah,
the most important thing I can do ever in my life is to cram for these interviews. I have to prepare myself. And there was a point, I hope this isn't bad advice, where I was like, well, what I'm doing when I do that is I raise the stakes. I instead of going through a 7 hour ordeal to not get anywhere, to not get an offer, now I'm going through a 50-hour ordeal, or at least like double that time, like a 14-hour ordeal, stressing myself out, uh, and raising the stakes, and now I don't get it, and all of this time and energy was wasted, not just the time and energy they requested of me for the interview. So I actually went through this discovery where it was like, what I could do is just stop stressing and preparing, because like, depending on who I'm going against, if I'm going against a someone with 3 PhDs, CCIEs for this position, I'm not going to just cram overnight in 8 hours and have more knowledge than they are. They're trying to
yeah,
hire me based on the knowledge I have, not based on the knowledge I can gain by cramming last minute. So that's kind of a realization I had. I just wanted to tell you about that, because that made a big difference in my job search. Because it was just like, I'm not going to give this process any more than it is due, and that
mhm,
led to a situation where, when I didn't get an offer, it was just what they asked of me that I gave them, and not so much more for cramming and studying, just not to get it anyway. So I kind of lowered the stakes, and I was able to focus more on finding other opportunities, rather than just stretching so much more and investing so much into this one that doesn't work out in the end.
yeah. There's a lot you can't control, and that a lot may not have anything to do with how little or much you prepare. So yeah, good perspective. Appreciate that.
Awesome. So yeah, I think that's it for this week. So I guess I'll see you
Great.
next week.
Thank you very much, Graham.
Yeah,
Great talking to you.
you too. Have a good week.
Uh-huh.